Hey, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be painting a couple of jerkbaits, and I've got the white primer on there already, but I wanted to show you what the blank looks like before I put the primer on. People ask me a lot if I use clear blanks to start, and the answer is yes. Some weights in there and some rattles as well. I put a coat of white opaque as my primer coat. I have a big bottle of that because I go through a lot. That's what I use 90% of the time. Sometimes I will use a black instead, depending on what I'm going for. But today we're going for Perch pattern, so we're going to start with an opaque yellow next. I'm going to thin that out a little bit. All the paints that I'm using today I'm going to thin out, some more than others, just because I found certain colors require a little bit more. And if I don't thin it out right, it does get stuck in my brush and it's a pain. I end up taking my brush apart a lot and kind of tinkering with it and putting it back together. I have a really cheap brush. I bought the Master Airbrush set on Amazon. It came with a compressor and everything I needed to get started, but definitely a beginner brush, and I'll be upgrading that soon. So I'm going to start with the opaque yellow on the belly and just kind of work my way up. I can't mess this up at this point because I'm just putting on sort of another base coat. The white just makes that more opaque so that you can't see through that yellow at all. I've also got my PSI on my compressor up pretty high. When I'm doing these just coats where I don't have to do any detail work, I like to put it on about 40 PSI because then my spray gun doesn't jam up nearly as much. It sprays a lot. I might waste a little bit of paint doing this, and you can see on my filter in the back there all that back spray, but it just speeds up that process. Next, I'm going to do this gold. Now, this doesn't really work well for me, and this is one of those ones I was talking about that I like to thin out more than others. The gold has a little bit of substance to it. It seems like it clots at the bottom of the like paint container a lot. So I thin it out more, and I still have problems with it. You can see it's coming out of the gun, but it really doesn't add a lot. It just adds a little bit of a sparkle there, so I don't actually like that paint. Next, I'm using this like yellow orange that I've used in other videos. This is probably one of my favorite colors. I'm actually running out of it because it just looks really good. It fades really good with the yellow. And if you're gonna do kind of like a yellow to orange transition, it makes a great kind of go between those, and it looks really natural. It aligns with a lot of like Perch colors as well as like pumpkin seeds colors that you'll see on bluegill and just in nature. So I'm gonna thin that one out too. I'm gonna spray this starting kind of from the back and then go down to blend with that yellow, so it just kind of fades up and just has a gradual fade up into a little bit darker yellowish orange. Again, this is early enough where I can't really mess this up. There's nothing that I can't undo. I'm not doing any fine detail. This is all going to have several layers over it. This is just the base coat, but it does add a lot of depth just adding that second color. Just the flat yellow does not look natural at all, and this does a lot to make this just start to take shape. Now I've switched to my kind of like darker brown color, and I'm gonna add some speckles in there, some spots on that stencil piece of paper that I made. I do this on a lot of my baits, a lot of my pretty much everything that I'm trying to make a natural looking bait, because I think it sort of adds impurity and that looks more natural, just having some random speckles and spots. I intended this to be a crappie stencil, and it does work for that. I've got a video, I think, of that, but it works for just about everything, just adding sort of natural colors and speckles and spots on there to look like imperfections. I'm gonna be careful with this. Something that I've learned is if I thin this color too much, or anything I'm putting through a stencil, if I thin it too much, it'll sometimes go through the stencil and then run down and like drip almost, and it does not look good when that happens. So I try not to thin this too much. Now I'm going in with a mesh that I used in my bluegill pattern as well, and again it's just kind of adding irregular scale pattern. I'm folding this over once so that it's not a perfect diamond. I don't want it to look perfect. I don't I want the shapes to be a little bit irregular and for each one of them to look unique, so it looks more natural that way. But I'm gonna just do a light coat of this all the way across, and that may be hard to see, but you can kind of see that dot pattern going across. It doesn't look really natural now, but it will once we add some more layers. And then I have an even thinner mesh. This is actually a spawn bag for like salmon or steelhead fishing. It's the mesh you'd use to tie spawn bags. Works really great for just a really fine scale stencil. And I do that just on the gills because it looks pretty cool to have a different smaller scale looking pattern on the gill. And then I'll darken the backs of these as well. Pretty much every time I do a pattern, it helps like darkening and just blending it down. So I'll start on the back just like I did when I blended the orange into the yellow. I'll start on the back and just kind of blend that down, and I'll touch up the gill plates and the head a little bit to make those a little bit darker. And when we put the eyes on later, having that dark around the eye makes the eye that we put on there pop a little bit more. I'm going to hit this with some darker layers after this, so this part's not super important, but we are getting into a little bit more detail work, so I do have to be careful not to overdo it. All right, that's what these look like when I'm done with that color. Again, we've started with the lightest color, that yellow, worked up to the orange, now worked up to that brown, and now we're going to go in with a transparent black. And this is where I'm going to start doing the stripes. I've been using this broken hair clip for stripes, and it works okay. The one thing I don't like about it is it makes a completely sort of rectangular stripe, and I'd like my stripes to taper down a little bit more like you'll see on a perch. So I'm going to look for a new stripe tool. Also, it's not long enough to cover a whole jerkbait, so I have to line it up just right to space those evenly because I have to do 2 different positions to get that across the whole bait. So this works okay. It turns out looking pretty good. I do like it, but I am on the hunt for a better tool. Most of my, pretty much all of my stencils and things that I'm using at this point are just things I found around the house, things I've created myself. That's part of the fun of this, is just looking around and seeing what you can find that you can use to make different patterns, and when it works out, it's pretty cool. So these are starting to look good. I'm going to darken the back on this as well. Like I said earlier, anytime you have a pattern, you kind of want to like darken the back or the connecting part of that just to blend it and make it look more natural. So those stripes come out pretty pronounced, but as I blend it, it doesn't seem as, I don't know, it seems a lot more natural. So I did a pretty good job spacing those, and yeah, now I'm just blending from the back. I notice while I'm doing this, using the transparent black, you can still kind of see through. I mean, transparent, that's the point, right? But I want to hit it now with a little bit of opaque black because I do want it kind of seamless. I don't want you to be able to see on the back of the bait those stripes going all the way across, and the transparent black didn't completely cover that. So I'm going to hit it with that dark, and then I'm going to fade that in a little bit, and this actually makes it look really good. I'd never done this before, so I was like, oh, I bet if I hit that with some opaque, it'll look a lot better. I want that completely black on the back, and then I'll use this to darken the gills a little bit more too, and around the eyes. And this is my last step. So I like the way those are looking right now. I've got, again, the layers are the yellow and then fading to a little bit of the orange, and then I've added the brown speckles and scales on there, and then I've added the transparent black stripe and then the opaque black across the back. So not too many layers. Now I'm going to put my eyes on there. I like to go with a natural eye, so like I think it's just like a yellow round eye that I'm putting on there. I struggle with this part. I've played around with super gluing them on there because I have had them fall off during clear coating, but it's hard to get those on there. Finally got them. That's what we look like before clear coat. So pretty good. Again, you can see my stripes don't look super natural because I'd like them to taper instead of being straight down like that, but I'm going to put my little logo on there. It's a CO2 I just made that on some transfer paper, and you can cut that out and then soak it in water and then apply that. And then you want to make sure it completely dries before you add a clear coat, but I'll hit it with the hair dryer and just kind of like touch it up. This is pre-clear coat, but these are a bunch of baits that I've been working on that are drying after clear coat. They're sitting on my rack. Those red jerk baits have been doing really well for me, as well as those orange and blue lipless cranks. So I've done a lot of those. That's some jerk baits that I made for a buddy. Now here comes the clear coat. Always makes the patterns and colors pop, gives it that shine. So these came out looking pretty cool. And here they are hanging, drying. You can see all those details and layers that we put in. All right, guys, thanks for watching.